By the end of this video, you will have such a greater understanding of why your young person struggles. And the key distinction that I'll talk about in this video is can't versus won't. If you can get this and start to just look at the struggles that your young person might be facing through this lens, it's going to open up a whole world of how you can be of service and help guide them through the difficulties that they might be having. Okay, so let's get started. First, to define can't versus won't means that we're talking about a lack of ability versus a lack of desire. Like, we wouldn't expect me to play in the NBA. I am a very mediocre basketball player at very best. I'm 46 and I'm 5'6", and I can't jump and I can't. There's many things I can't do. You get it. It is a lack of ability, right? It's not like I won't want to go play for the NBA or do whatever it takes to get into the NBA through college, all of that, right? It's a very clear lack of ability versus lack of desire. Now, this is a tricky one to apply to your young person because you don't always know. That's why it's so helpful to assess this and to get some professional help in assessing. Are they not being successful in this pursuit, whether it's school or friendships or other relationships or the relationship with themselves, because they can't or they won't? And almost always it's a combination, but looking at which are the things that they lack an ability with and lack a skill set with versus they don't wanna is really important because it guides how you approach your parenting, all right? So sometimes, here's the thing, here's the tricky part, a couple distinctions. Sometimes the won't is a disguised lack of ability, that the young person is saying, I don't want to, because they are so hurt, insecure, feel terrible about themselves or embarrassed about not being able to do something that they think they should be able to do or other people expect them to be able to do, but they can't. So they'll say, I won't, as a way of kind of covering up the tenderness or the vulnerability of not being able to do something, right? You've seen this in your parenting, I'm sure. I've seen it thousands of times. What's really interesting is that an origin point for power struggles often come from a parent thinking that they won't when they actually can't, right? It's a huge source of wounding, especially in young people with ADHD. I see this all the time. When young people with ADHD have a really hard time paying attention and they are punished in the classroom because the teacher thinks they're misbehaving and the young person is just doing their thing. You know, especially as a young child, I've seen this so many times. They're just young kids kind of bouncing around the room, you know, and they're like that, you know, and just being silly. And teachers are overwhelmed. They got big classrooms, whatever. They're not therapists. And they get in trouble. And so this young person is like, what did I do? Right? And the teacher's like, they won't pay attention. They won't behave. Oh, you know this. It's a slippery road because there is a lack of ability for young people at that time, right? And so when they are labeled as troublemakers, as they won't pay attention when it's actually just challenging for them, that's when young people with ADHD start to build this callus, right? And they start to get angry and they start to lash out and they start to push people away. It's a misdiagnosed can't. It's a misdiagnosed lack of ability. It's not that they don't want to, it's that it's challenging for them. And the lack of sensitivity to their challenge has them start to struggle in ways because they don't know what to do with the emotion that they're experiencing. The shame, the anger, the frustration, the like, don't you see me kind of attitude that they, have hidden deep inside themselves, right? So let's talk about the important part, which is what do you do? All right, so the first obvious piece is assess their ability with whatever they might be struggling with, whether it's school or relationships. Do they have the ability and they just don't want to access it? They don't want to activate it. They don't want to do the kind of hard work to navigate the challenge that they're experiencing, right? Which I'll say more about that in a minute. But is the ability there or is it not? If the ability is not there, then generally what we do is we support them to gain the ability, right? I'm going to oversimplify this just for a few minutes. If they lack an ability, generally we support them in getting the skill set. Maybe it's a tutor. Maybe it's a therapist if they're having relational difficulties. Whatever the difficulty is, there are people and resources out there, generally speaking, that can help them increase their ability, right? If it's a won't, then generally we use structure or boundaries to encourage them to do the thing. Or you can use natural consequences to encourage them to do the thing that they don't want to do, right? Doing the things we don't want to do when they are generally helpful and move us forward in our lives is an origin point for emotional resilience. So we like that people face moments that they don't want to do it. You probably didn't want to do many things today, and you did them, and that's making you a more emotionally resilient person just by moving forward and engaging with them, right? So that's the first thing, is generally we support when there's a can't, and we challenge or we allow failures, some minor failures, to address the won't, generally speaking. And there's a lot more nuances in this, but generally speaking, that's how it is. Secondly, have a meaningful dialogue with your kids about what's hard and what just sucks, but they just don't want to do it, right? And have a down to earth conversation. What's hard for you about school? Well, I hate the teachers. Okay, what is it that you don't hate about the teachers? Well, they're just mean. Oh, they're mean. Okay, well, what's mean about them? Well, they never give me the help that I want. Bing, right? So that was maybe an abbreviated, longer conversation that you'll have to have for the sake of time. But gosh, yeah, okay, so what help do you feel like you need? Well, I want to play more. Oh, sweetie, I know. You just want to go to recess, right? Yeah. So one way that you can address that, the nuance of the won't, is really understanding young people and what they want, right? That was more of an elementary school conversation that I just had and not a high school one, but you get the idea. Helping people feel understood and gotten helps dissolve the won't and the possibility for a power struggle. It dissolves the possibility for a power struggle to ensue. Oh, you're not going to do your homework? Well, then I'm going to take away your phone. Boom, there's a power struggle. And pretty soon you've got young people who are cutting off their nose to spite their face. Well, I'm not going to do my homework just because I want to get back at you is probably what they're thinking, right? So, okay, why don't you want to do your homework? There's probably, and not all the time, I would say generally 50% of the time, there is inside of every won't, there is a can't. Meaning something that's hard for someone, that there's a lack of ability that manifests as an I don't want to. And sometimes it's just I don't want to, I was talking with this great young person who's highly capable, and he was just oh God, I hate math, and he was being a little dramatic and just venting, which is fine. But he could do it, he just didn't want to, right? And he eventually did, and it was really successful and did fine, right? So that's the piece, is have a meaningful dialogue with them, get down to their level, have a great conversation about what's important to them, and what can they do and what can't they do, yeah? And then generally, like I said, we challenge the won't and we support the can't. If you enjoyed this, give a thumbs up, leave a comment below with any questions. It gives me a lot of ideas in terms of what other videos to post for you, and subscribe if you enjoyed. And I'll see you next time. All the best.